Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of How Do We Backlot with Lou and You. My name is VashSky, your host of today's ceremonies, and the one we're all really here for. Well, it is the one, the amazing LW Ghost. Lou!
They're here for you too. They're here for you too.
Not as much as they're here for you, good sir. But I do appreciate the compliment. We have in the chat, we have Juliet in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us and for modding. I do appreciate that. Jan Monroe. We have DL Fendel, Eric Stratton. We have Karen Owen, Walter Tomaszewski. Thank you so much for coming all in. And it should be a great, fantastic show. Look, Ravenar is there. Is there too. Thank you. Well, Lou, it's been a very interesting time in Hollywood. Wouldn't you agree?
Not necessarily. I'm getting jaded and bored in my old age, but moderately interesting. Okay.
Well,
you make it interesting. Go ahead, try.
We'll make it interesting for you. How about that? It's great stuff. And thank you, Rob, for coming in as well. Let's see here. We have discussing film with
him.
Oh yes. Kick out some of our box office news.
Oh, Hannah.
Lilo and Stitch is now tracking to be the first 2025 film to pass $1 billion. The film has already passed $600 million worldwide. Impressive. Most impressive. Lilo and Stitch has made $610 million at the global box office after its second weekend. Just to compare, Minecraft movie was at $551 million after its second weekend.
Go back to the shot before this.
Sure.
Well, all right, okay. I was thinking his size related to her sort of varies from interpretation to interpretation.
Yeah, I think it does.
It's like, is it real or is it a giant plushie? Anyway.
Well, he's an alien, Lou. Who knows?
Well, right? That's true. They have their own unique properties.
Yes, they have their own.
Most of them are on Mars, so they're not exactly on Zillow, but even so, they have their properties.
Indeed. And so does Ecker.
Oh, right? Those guys are still around too.
Oh yes. I think Lilo and Stitch is very interesting because people are saying, we don't want live action movies and all this kind of stuff, and I do think that is true to some degree. But it just goes to show that when you actually give people like what they remember, presented in a new way, that does actually have some financial viability there. And I just think it's fascinating. I just think it's a very interesting.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. If they remember it fondly and you screw it up, you alienate them forever.
Exactly. That's it. Exactly. So don't screw it up, Disney. Yes, and in this case, they didn't screw it up. It looks like it was good enough in order for to generate some good word of mouth and for people to show up in the first place. So good on Disney. And hey, guess what? It only cost them $100 million. We'll get back to Disney and their box office foibles here. But first, I want to go ahead and keep talking about this weekend right here. IMAX executives calling Tom Cruise their Lord and Savior. What a tweet by Luis Fernando. As Mission Impossible Final Reckoning reaches $53.2 million cum globally in IMAX screenings alone on its second weekend, being $28.3 million overseas and $24.9 million at the U.S. box office. Apparently, they will keep this film in IMAX screens globally until How to Train Your Dragon comes out. So that's pretty cool. That's good.
I wonder... I'm curious, somebody knows the numbers, and neither you nor I do right now. The relative market penetration of the large format theaters overseas compared to here, where they've been building them like crazy.
Yeah. I wonder what that is like. Do other markets even support the kind of PLFs that North America, both
or is the ticket price differential as big or smaller or whatever compared to here?
Yeah, I have to do a little bit more research on that. That's a good question, though, because I am very curious to know. I will say PLFs, even in like Southern California, for example, where I'm at right now, it's very weird because I'm having a hard time finding this film in a PLF. I'm having to drive maybe approximately an hour and a half away from where I am just to find this thing in a decent PLF. It's
you have to be careful about theaters where you are.
Mhm.
What was it called? Do you remember this movie? It's probably before your time, but it was about bugs. It was a pseudo documentary about bugs taking over the world. The Hallstrom anyway, I saw it at the main theater downtown on Palm Canyon. And I was sitting about 3 rows from the back of the theater. And about halfway through, you heard this clicking. There were hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of big, roachy, cicada-like bugs on the back wall of the theater coming to see the bug movie. That scared the crap out of everybody.
Whoa, man. Yeah, okay. Well, you know, we got to pick your theaters wisely, I guess. Yeah. Is the idea there. Ooh-wee, that's no good. Well,
something like that. Anyway.
Hopefully, the only thing that has you squirming in your seats are the amazing stunts and aerial acrobatics associated with this film. We talked about a lot of this on the last Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you on our Memorial Day special right there. We talked about the history of wing walking and just how crazy all this stuff actually is, what Tom did. I've got some video to share with you all right here. It's very short. We won't belabor the point because we did talk about so much last time.
Yeah, we did.
And I encourage everybody to see that. But hey, you know what? Let's go ahead and play this right now. Here we go.
I remember seeing like black and white footage of the very early days of wing walk, and I just thought, oh, I'd love to do that. I was a little kid, and then we just, you see how we kind of work on different aerial sequences from Top Gun, and then, I fly jets and airplanes and helicopters, aerobatics. Few things inspire me quite like an aerial sequence. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to do wing walking. I saw old black and white film. I was like, man, what would it be like to do that? So how to do this? How do we give the audience something incredibly unique, yet also classic? That's always a challenge. We're using all of the knowledge that we have, having made these movies, and putting it into this sequence. And that's the goal. Take everything that you've learned and push it to that next level, to give the audience the greatest possible experience.
Oops.
You were strapped on? Did you have a parachute?
Which one? This
plane sequence?
No, I had no parachute. It would have been too dangerous to have a parachute on this.
Okay.
It was because say it deployed, the airplane would have crashed. It would have killed me. I literally had just a thin wire as I'm going through it, and it had to have enough space that I could move around the plane so that I could be off the wing and move when you see me go around. And a lot of that testing I had to be able to transfer. There's points where you see me go from the tip of the wing right to the fuselage all in one shot. And that's real. And it's also how do we spending the time to figure out how to get to the airplane into that position where I could make that maneuver. And that was quite a trick. And physically it was incredible.
You're going to talk us through it?
Yeah, I'll talk you through. Now, this is basically us. We shoot the rehearsals on this particular one. It took decades to be able to figure this out. I'm transferring from one thing to the next. Obviously, I climbed down from that helicopter. The things that I have to know are, I'm a helicopter pilot. I have to understand that. I understand this. What the pilot is doing underneath me. I'm watching that propeller so it doesn't hit me or the helicopter above. You can see when you see the movie, on this particular thing, we're shooting the rehearsals.
I don't want to ask an inappropriate question, but what's the worst possible outcome here?
Death.
Well, firstly, he's not wearing a parachute.
It's called death. So, let me give her a clue.
Why would you do that? Why would you choose not to wear the parachute?
Oh man!
For the entertainment.
Okay, this is a dumb question maybe, but
he really did put his life on the line, and pretty cool stuff. And you just don't see this kind of stuff done much anymore.
Of a comic lyric I wrote for a musical one time. It was a song sung by an older dowager experienced actress who'd been there and done that, doing everything. And the lyric was, people say the theater's in your blood. I say there must be some confusion because my blood is in the theater, enough for a transfusion.
Yeah.
Those were the days.
I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? Death. So what are you talking about? Like, this is super dangerous stuff. That's particularly funny, but that there's a myriad of different stunts in this, and we've only really broken down the one aspect. I mean, there's a whole submarine sequence in which he's wearing a $125 million custom-made suit in order to submerge like he does in a certain part of the film and stuff like that. Just all kinds of crazy stuff. But, Tom Cruise, good sport that he is, thanked fans personally for, really supporting this movie into the theaters. And that's actually really cool. We had an article about
There's the real headline.
Mm-hmm.
He said thank you to the audience.
Yes.
Who does that anymore?
Right.
The last time I remember anybody doing that was John Wayne at the Oscars a long time ago. And it's like, thank your agent, thank your hairdresser, thank your fortune teller. But God forbid you should thank the audience who actually put you there. Good for him. Good for him.
Good for him indeed. Okay. I love that. That is really, really cool right there. But unfortunately, Disney's got no one to thank because no one saw what they put out, at least when it came to Thunderbolts. I'm bringing up Thunderbolts and I'm bringing up all this stuff because, remember, we're all leading up to this big old temple that is Avengers Doomsday. And unfortunately, people are just not supporting this stuff, at least to the degree that they probably should be. Luis Fernando, Thunderbolts.
Part of the problem being when you build solid gold platinum tent poles, your tent had better be big.
Yes.
I see there's a super from Kiki and Luca that says 2 years with 3 movies earning $1 billion for Disney. Inside Out 2, Moana, Deadpool, Lilo and Stitch. Success? ?
Well,
the answer is not if you lost 3 times as much on everything else.
Yeah, that's the thing, right?
Success is net. Success is net. And when you have nothing but net on very expensive movies, and you're still making insanely expensive, I'm sure you'll get to Elio at some point.
Yes.
If they only made just those and nothing else, oh God, they'd be in the clover.
On cloud 9. But when you have to support a Snow White, which you lose $250 million, let's say, when you have to support a Captain America Brave New World, where you lose at least $100 million, where you have to support a Thunderbolts, where you lose $100 million, you can see where those box office earnings go.
When we talk about how much those movies lost, since they were expected to help bolster Disney Plus, they're still losing. They haven't stopped losing just because they're out of the theaters. What they aren't doing to produce for the other parts of the company, what they aren't inspiring as far as a successful theme park attraction or whatever, is yet to come as far as losses are concerned. The losses just keep on happening.
Right. Because you expected, I mean, when you budget these films, Lou, you expect to make a certain amount of box office, right? And you're expecting that that's going to be available for you in order to further whatever venture that you want. When these things underperform, it has catastrophic implications for the entire company, especially one that relies on this kind of synergistic flywheel, right? This ability to.
Was there any Thunderbolts merch worth buying? Bunch of ugly people in black suits looking grim. Boy, right, that's exactly what I want on my 9-year-old girl's bed, right?
Exactly.
Jeez.
When these things don't perform to the expectation, again, you leave a lot of people holding the bag, and that includes, like you said, providers of merch and everything else.
Somebody in our back channels put up an action figure of the female Silver Surfer, and it had a crotch that said, "We took a male figure and stuck a girl's body and upper body on it, and It reminded me of turning Hillary into Trump for the Hall of Presidents, you know?
Oh, I see. Yes, it is. And hey, look, listen, they'll be selling a lot more Lilo and Stitch merch, which is good. But yeah, I don't know how far that stuff for
Again, they could sell lots of it, and it doesn't make up for the fact that all these other things won't.
Yeah, so this is posted by
how strong is your BO?
Yeah, exactly.
His father never would have let him do that. I remember him, the guy that started exhibitor relations. But
yeah, fair enough. Thank you, Kiki and Luca, with the 489, and I'll get to the other super chat in just a second. I just want to go ahead and put this on screen right here because this is the bigger concern right here. Even if you do have like a hit here and a hit here, your big franchises, again, some stuff that you may have bought for $4 billion, right? Back in the day, your golden goose in the form of Marvel, let's say, it just isn't as relevant as it was before. And so how much of all these earnings are you going to throw at trying to correct this issue? Go ahead.
I saw a very interesting comment by, actually, where is it? Yeah, somebody who's here today, DL Fendel, said about Superman having a very high anticipated box office. I have my criticisms of what I've seen of Superman in the trailers, but he suggested, I should say, because I read his thing. It's the antidote or opposite of superhero. Everybody says, oh, people are tired of superhero movies. Superhero fatigue is setting in. Well, I would suggest the longing for a good superhero movie is just as strong as it ever was. And that if you're going to take a risk on any of them, Superman, being the perennial great one, is the one you're going to take a risk on. You may have that risk, unrequited by the actual movie. But I think the advance box office projections for that are high because people are thinking, oh, please, God, let this be the one that's okay. That's good. I'd sure like it to be good. And I like Superman, so we'll see. Although I thought all of those scenes of the damn dog who's super dragging him through the snow rather than just picking him up by the cape and carrying him. Like, did they think that through very well? Or is that just one dumb dog? Anyway, we'll see.
Sorry, there's some really interesting stuff to say on that point. So you can see right here, this is a poll that was put out, 2,000 votes right here. At least the Twitter audience, right? And at least the people following exhibitor relations are having this reaction. Now, that's not really indicative of the wider pool of potential audience goers, right? I think that's a more difficult thing to anticipate for, and that shows up in tracking and everything else. But when it comes to Superman, well, it is set to soar with massive box office projections. But there are rumors about potential reshoots or something happening in the background in which maybe James Gunn was forced in order to take a lot of the comedy out, go for a more serious tone. Apparently, executives are a little bit worried about how this will actually all be received by the by audiences and so forth. This is a big gamble for Warner Bros. Discovery, is it not?
Sure, enormous. Not 300 million on an animated feature, enormous, but still. It's interesting. I see Kiki and Luca said, I saw Mission. I hate to say it, but it was too long and boring. Best ones were number 1, Fallout, and Rogue Nation. I could talk about those too. But there was a great review by the wonderful John Nolte where he said, the last hour of this Mission Impossible movie is some of the greatest stuff ever. The only problem is it takes the previous 11 hours of the movie to get to it.
Yeah. If there's one thing that is wrong with this film, there's way too much exposition. I mean, you really should have had that in part 1. They spend so much time trying to remind you of the cues from part 1 and setting up for the adventure that you're going to have later. And it's important to set the stakes. I get that. But man,
I happened to see the very first Mission Impossible feature in an interesting way because I was going to. They did a restoration, reprint everything of North by Northwest, and they premiered it at the Alex Theater in Glendale. And as a special guest speaker, Martin Landau was there. And when it got to the Q&A, somebody asked him about whether he had been asked to be in the new Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he was, and he decided not to. And he said, and I'll tell you why. He says, in Mission Impossible, we all cared about each other. We all protected each other. We all loved each other as friends and colleagues. In this movie, in the first 10 minutes, they wipe everybody out. He says, that just wasn't Mission Impossible to me. And I said, thanks a lot, but no thanks. And he's got a point. But anyway, they do wipe
everybody out. He does develop his team later on, and certainly people who get wiped out later are more impactful than the first team. But that's something to be said about that for sure. And that's the thing, I guess, with this rumor here that let me go ahead and put this back on screen right here. Apparently, with this new Superman film, they're like I was saying before, they're a little worried, at least if going by this rumor and it being true. Superman movie cut by 30 minutes, editor fired, and tone overhauled after test screening Fallout. This by Marvin Montanaro, May 30th.
I will point out, what do you suppose those 30 minutes cost?
Oh man,
50 million?
At least. Yeah, or 25 at least.
Yeah, is it good that they're cutting it? Is it good that they're making it better, that we hope? Sure. But when you're always digging yourself out of the hole you've already dug,
it's
tough.
If your response to a recent Superman test screening may have led to sweeping changes for the upcoming James Gunn movie. According to a report from World of Real, major last-minute changes have rocked James Gunn's Superman reboot, including the removal of nearly 25 to 30 minutes of footage, the replacement of an editor, and the addition of a second composer. These changes reportedly stem from mixed Superman test screening reactions, prompting executives to rework the film in a bid to avoid yet another box office embarrassment for the DC brand. Behind the scenes, tensions are reportedly running high. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, along with DC Studios co-heads James Gunn and Peter Safran, are said to be deeply involved in the final stages of post-production, scrutinizing every frame to avoid the kind of misfires that tanked The Flash, Shazam 2, Wonder Woman 1984, Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, Black Adam, Blue Beetle, and so on.
They were all involved in those too, weren't they?
Well,
so can we trust them to fix?
That's a fair point.
And the obvious question is, look, gang out there, if you and me and 12 other friends got together to make a movie and halfway through or 3/4 or even closer, we said, you know what, this doesn't really work. What if we did this instead and cut 30 minutes? And, well, we'd be within our rights to do that, as they are, because it's their money. But when you're supposedly the expert, the pros, the number one, the people that are trusted with making these decisions, it's a little late to get religion, you know? It just is. It just is. Aren't they supposed to have figured out what was wrong before they shot half an hour of stuff they can't use? Before they had got an editor that didn't work out, and before they had to hire another composer, and before there used to be a saying, and it's gone now because of digital projection, but they called it wet prints when they literally were rushing the actual physical prints to the theaters within days of opening.
Right.
Well, just because it's easier without that doesn't mean it's right. So
yes, and I heard, I heard that was maybe the case with the original Star Trek, if I'm not mistaken. And,
definitely.
Yeah. And we might be seeing the same thing with Fantastic Four and maybe even Superman as well. Apparently, Fantastic Four, they're getting a little,
Well, and of course, with Star Trek, I don't know if people realize the director, Robert Wise, who also directed Andromeda Strain, which I just happened to watch again last night because I was looking for something fun. And boy, that's pretty perfect as movies go. Robert Wise was Orson Welles' editor on Citizen Kane.
Really?
That's how far back his experience goes. So maybe some of these relative Johnny-come-latelys just haven't got the the
chops.
breadth of experience, to make these decisions. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
I mean,
Recent.
Orson was a bolt out of the blue, but there aren't many of those, are there?
That's a fair point. Recent Fantastic Four test screenings reportedly mid with CGI incomplete and character work lacking. That's by Marvel Montero, May 30th, 2025. Marvel Studios may have a problem on its hands. According to multiple sources, the most recent test screenings of the Fantastic Four First Steps were held earlier this week in Los Angeles, and the reactions were mixed, though it's still in post-production, in its post-production phase. Initial viewer feedback suggests the reboot might not be the triumphant return for Marvel's first family that Kevin Feige was hoping for. Industry scooper Jeff Snyder of the Snyder shared details from a source who attended the screening, describing the film as, quote, mid and meh, clarifying that it was, quote, not that bad, but not that good either. Perhaps most concerning are criticisms about weak character development and bad CGI.
Well, but see, look, if they were looking at a version that didn't have the finished effects in it, to criticize them at all is crazy.
Yes. And
character development's another story. But the CGI, if they're looking at, I mean, I've seen lots of things where there's just storyboards in certain places because it hasn't come back from, CGI land yet. And to judge that is unfair.
Right. You might be looking at, pre-visualizations. You might be looking at storyboards. You might be looking at, something that is a
How come
placeholder.
Pedro doesn't get white shoulders like everybody else?
That's a good question.
One more thing he's got a lot of splaining to do about.
Yeah, exactly. What's going on there? Maybe he used head and shoulders. The latter of which Schneider notes should improve in the coming weeks as visual effects are finalized. He does note that in general, Marvel doesn't do public test screenings unless they're worried, Snyder wrote. That was the case with Eternals, The Marvels, Quantumania, and Brave New World. Yikes. While Snyder initially reported that Marvel was high on the project internally, another unnamed source reported to describe the film as a mess and a, quote, huge problem.
Well, this whole thing about how high you are internally.
Mm-hmm.
Who? If it's not the boss, it's a bunch of people who want the boss to like them. So they're not going to say your baby's ugly.
Right. Yeah.
So things get a momentum of approval from within based on everything but the actual movie and everything else politically and job preservationally and everything else. So it may be a movie studio, but it's not that different from the company you work at. If you work at a large company, everybody would like to have a job tomorrow. So they're not going to say, hey, wait a minute, until they have to, I guess. Not all the reactions were negative. Oh God. It's like hasn't got much spam in it.
It's just got, it's just a general reaction. It was okay for a tentpole.
It's a promising sign that the bad guy was liked by the audience, but not the good guys. I see. Okay, fine, swell. I mean, I just read this stuff and I go, what? How much of your own inhalation are you inhaling? It's just.
Oh man. Well, speaking of good guys, apparently we have
the first act shaky, but it gets better once Galactus shows up. Well, that's probably true of every movie without its bad guy showing up. I mean,
that's the thing.
Shaky. These people, they don't know what the hell they're saying. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just trying to make themselves important by being first. I'm
perhaps.
Sorry. But that's just my intolerance.
Well, we have much tolerance for Eric Stratton with the 777. Thank you so much for that. Antique Roadshow appraised a signed Stan Laurel letter to a fan. They mentioned that Stan replied to all fans' letters. Were there any other actors that did this?
No. Well, look, if you're a huge fan, a star, and you're getting thousands a week, as huge stars do, that's impossible. It's impossible. Right to every single fan. It's just impossible. I don't know. I mean,
a little bit of Stan Laurel right there.
A genius. Cool. A true genius.
That is awesome. Yeah. How do you even nowadays? I mean, how do you even write to even a fraction of your audience now?
And lots of people just sort of went to see him.
Yeah.
I think Dick Van Dyke talks about going to see him because he lived in an apartment in Santa Monica, and everybody knew where he lived, and would just knock on the door and say hi. So,
Oh, what a quaint period. Indeed. Well, thank you, Erica, for that. And then we have the Wild Man of Yavin coming in here with the $5. Happy Sunday. Lou, God bless. Vash, God bless. Chat, God bless. Well, thank you so much for including all those blessings for everybody.
yes, indeed.
Indeed.
Take them where you can get them,
That's right. And thank you, Wild Man of Yavin, for doing just that. You mentioned Elio.
Oh, did I?
As well.
God, I wish I hadn't. Except that I'm sorry, I've said this before, but I just keep thinking of Roy going to Walt and saying, listen, this Snow White thing you want to do, we cost it out, and the way you want to do it, it's going to be $300 million. I don't think we can afford it.
Yes.
And Walt would have said, you're right, let's cut it back, because he wasn't a total idiot, But this is an untried, at least that had the fairy tale going for it. This is a totally new. We keep saying, why don't they come up with new IPs? Answer, because they overspend on those even worse than they do on the existing ones.
That's true. And, well, they just don't get the same level of support.
It says they're tracking disastrous box office opening, right?
Yes.
What if it was tracking the opening that Superman is? It would still be a loser at $300 million for an animated movie.
Let's get into it. Elio tracking disastrous opening box office projections as Pixar faces one of its worst debuts ever. This is by Marvin Montanaro, May 31st, 2025. From That Park Place, Pixar's long-troubled Elio is now tracking for a devastating domestic box office opening, with early projections from the Hollywood Handle estimate the film will pull in just $35 to $45 million in its debut weekend. For most animated films, that would be a worrying start, but for Elio, it could be catastrophic. Budget was nearly, like Lou mentioned, $300 million. Oh my goodness gracious. I mean, it's like, whoa. And Kiki and Luca, this is what we're talking about right here. It's like, yeah, you have a string of successes, right? Played out over 2 years, but it's those bombs in between that keep you below water. And unfortunately, that might be happening profoundly here. When you have a film like Lilo and Stitch, it's only budgeted for $100 million and it makes $300 million. It's like, oh, that's great, fantastic. When you have a $300 million film making a fraction at $35 to $45 million, that is going to eat up the former, at least the profit there. Lou?
Yeah, you said it. You can't keep hoping for a big hit to help you claw back into the running when you're in this deep a hole. You have to stop making losers, and you have to stop making expensive losers.
Yes. And somebody, I believe it was Jam Monroe. Let me see if I can put this up on screen here, saying, are you suggesting that
there you go.
the hole that you're digging, right? It's this kind of sunk cost fallacy is what we call it.
The point is, something didn't come down from the gods yesterday and say, I have a new thing called making movies in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. People have been doing this for 100 years now.
Right.
100 years, basically.
Yes.
If you go back to the silence, and we should, in some cases, especially with anything that Pedro's in. But anyway, we have these people, my dear friends and colleagues, called production managers, who take a script and budget it and figure out how many days it's going to take and how much it's going to cost and how to do it the most efficiently. And when they come back and say, well, I've done it and it's going to cost X, and you say, haven't got X, what can we cut? You cut it, you make it work. And you get all of that stuff done before you ever turn a foot of film. I've mentioned this now, 10 times, but I'll say it again. Demolition Man, when we of the genre guys did it, one of the things we learned was the script was 6 years in the working before they ever shot a foot of film. There's a result. It worked.
Right.
So
Exactly. It did work. They would
but oh gosh, well, nowadays it's pick a name, figure out what release date, and work backward from there. And that's not the way to do it.
Oh,
And I see Kiki and Luca again saying Pixar needs to get back to making movies like Up, Ratatouille, and Wall-E. Well, I got to tell you something. If this Elio crash is as bad as it is, that might be it for Pixar. It might just be Walt Disney Imagination absorbing all of these various pieces into itself. And that becomes a question of, if you bought Pixar for the talent, but also for the brand, and suddenly the brand has been totally destroyed by your mistakes, it's not just what you lose on Elio, it's what you lost on buying the company. It's what you lost on making Pixar appear at DCA. It's what you lost on, anyway.
Well, I will say the only saving grace that Pixar has is the fact that they produced one of the highest grossing animated films of all time in Inside Out 2 last year. That's the only saving grace here. And one could argue, okay, maybe you went over budget on this and it's a one-off fluke. Pixar's got to get their stuff together, because you can't just have
and if you want to give another Pixar accolade, to my mind, the last wonderfully successful attraction based on a movie that Disney has done in the parks is Radiator Springs Racers at DCA.
Yeah. Yep.
Since then, bupkis. So,
and you know who was largely responsible for that, Lou?
Who would that be?
Well,
that infamous hugger?
Yes, the infamous hugger himself, Mr. John Lasseter.
Maybe we need more huggers at this company and less geniuses.
You might. There might be something to be said about that.
More skippers, less flippers.
I remember, and here you go. Here's a little bit of footage of what Lou was talking about right there with
it's such a wonderful ride. It really
it's amazing. It's amazing.
It's just great.
It's an amazing attraction, and it really was profoundly. This was so successful, and
when you've got this, what's wrong with putting that in Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios 2, rather than but we can do better. We can get dirt buggies.
I don't know.
And tear down everything in the process.
But I remember a story. Apparently, John Lasseter was really pushing hard for a larger budget for this particular attraction, and somebody said to him, "Hey, look, listen, we got to cut $10 million because this, that, and the other thing." He's like, "Okay, look, listen, you can be at the end of this attraction, telling guests as they got off that it would be $10 million or $15 million better, but we had to cut the budget. You can go ahead and tell every single guest that gets off this attraction that we had a better attraction in store, but we couldn't actually deliver because you said we had to cut money." There's nobody like that at WDI, like you said, and perhaps that's what's needed. Unfortunately, those people who could present those arguments or could fight for quality just simply aren't there, and that's why we're getting something like a dirt buggy attraction rather than this.
I mean, this thing combines outdoor and indoor and characters and speed, and it does frankly everything that the redo of motion at Epcot should have done, but really didn't.
Yeah, it's so true. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a great attraction, and it's one that is still paying dividends today, especially when they've implemented Lightning Lane. This has been a huge Lightning Lane revenue driver for the company, and what we're going on. I mean, it's going to be almost 15 years in 2027. So, just absolutely fantastic. But you're right, Lou. This is the last big thing, and again, yes, Inside Out 2 made buku money at the box office, but how do you do when building franchises, right, or building new IP? If Elio is the mark of how you deliver original film, that's just not good enough.
Well, especially because when the next one comes along and they tell them, no, that's too expensive, they'll say, well, you spend it on Elio.
There you go. Exactly. Flying Blind on a Rocket Cycle with $4.99. Hi, y'all. hope you're having a nice Sunday. I remain cautiously hopeful for Superman. I also would prefer a frozen Elio's pizza to the Pixar version.
Is that a brand? I don't know. There's so many pizzas out there.
I think Marvin.
You and I know the best, but other than that,
yeah, we do. Speaking of pizza, I don't know if you saw this right here. Let me see if I can bring it up really quickly. But I guess our friend Wallen Ballin, the Epic Universe extraordinaire, actually caught wind of Disneyland selling pizza and was startled by the prices featured. Let me see if I can find it really quickly here.
Is anybody out there startled by prices anymore? Offended, perhaps. Refused to pay them, perhaps. But startled? Not anymore.
That's a fair point.
Must be those tariffs on the pizza crust that they're sending over from China, right? That's their excuse, right?
Yeah, exactly. Here you go, right there. Disneyland's charging $56 for this pizza.
Pardon me?
Yes. For this pizza, $56. Not the pizza restaurant itself, not a buffet. This pizza. Yikes. Yeah.
$56.
Mm-hmm. And then
how many are they selling?
I don't know.
Question.
$8.99 for a pepperoni slice. Urgh, goodness gracious. Yeah. That's
they're
tough.
Getting an average about 4 or 5 slices of pepperoni per slice. So divided by $9. Damn, that better be made from Wagyu pepperoni cows.
Yeah, just strips of
Wagyu. I used to know a guy. His name is Roger Pagozzi, who was the executive chef at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown LA, and they have a very fine gourmet restaurant. And he wanted to put a pizza on the menu, and his F&B guy said, "You can't put a pizza on our menu. We can't charge enough for it." He said, "Want to bet? Watch me." And he made a pizza with imported Scottish salmon and creme fraiche, and sure enough, it was expensive enough to go on that menu. You know, it's all a question of the ingredients and the labor of love. But
and not in the case of Disney. In the case of Disney, it's looking to get you to pay for.
How big do you suppose? What diameter is that pizza? Foot?
You're probably talking like probably 16. Probably
16, yeah, okay. Because I get a really, really great margarita from a place here for I think it's $12, $13, something like that, for like a 12 or 14-inch pizza.
Absolutely outrageous.
And here's the other thing. There's some days I go on there and it's not on the menu. Why? Because they didn't get their shipment of basil or cheese or whatever, so they just don't sell it with something inferior that they could have gotten. Where's that kind of integrity in any of these places anymore? So,
well,
anyway.
Speaking of,
for those of you who come to me for culinary advice, that'll be the Hollywood commissary with Lou and you. So we'll cut off the pizza. But,
yes. Thank you, Flying Blind on Reconcile. Very much appreciate that. And well, let's go ahead and talk about, well, I guess the boutique. At least that's kind of what Kevin Smith is calling it right here. Let me go ahead and put this up on screen right now. You may have seen this video floating around. I want Lou to react to it because I don't.
God, he doesn't look well, does he? He lost too much weight.
Yeah, he lost a lot of weight. He did.
He needs a smaller hat. I don't know. Anyway, sorry, I just hadn't seen him lately, and
you're fine. I did clean this up, so we should be okay. Because it's Kevin Smith. But let's go.
On different aerial sequences from Top Gun.
Sorry about that. Let me go ahead and mute that, and there we go.
Because film exhibition's in the toilet. Because
but I like the theater. I like to go.
Sure, but you know what? Looking around here, are you the type of individual that also likes vinyl? Maybe
I have vinyl.
Some people are like, "Hey, man, vinyl. I swear by it." Cinema is going to become vinyl, which is like, it's never going away. But you keep looking at what's happening to multiplexes around the country. They're closing their 300-seat venues, their 200-seat venues, and they're putting in those, like, couch chairs with the feet that go up and stuff like that. So suddenly
They'll
you go
deliver
from
your food to you.
They'll bring food right to you, but you're going from like the mass experience of like 250 to 300 people in a theater to like 50 will sell this theater out because the ticket price has gone up, and hopefully we're going to sell you food and booze as well. That model seems completely untenable. And, I think that's why AMC, big companies like that, they're sweating and they're going like this up and down. The business still hasn't completely righted itself post-pandemic. Yes, Barbenheimer was great for things and whatnot, but there's not a Barbenheimer every week.
No.
And I don't think some of those cats are ever coming back for the theatrical experience, or maybe they'll come back once in a blue moon for something big. I think it's going to probably start being like Broadway. Broadway used to be everything, right? And then now it's like $150, $200 a ticket for the rarefied few who love it, but that's not mass consumption at this point.
Well, he's right and he's wrong.
Go ahead.
What he just said about Broadway, for example, when you've got something, and I'm not a fan of it, but when you've got something like Wicked that for 15 years or whatever it's been can go play every town in America, there's something to be done there, but business-wise. I'm just looking at the poster behind him for the original Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And what am I seeing? Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman, Christopher Reeve, Ned Beatty, Jackie Cooper, Glenn Ford, Trevor Howard, Margot Kidder, Valerie Bryan, Maria Schell, Terrence Stamp, Phyllis Thaxter, and Susanna York. Not exactly the Thunderbolts, is it?
Yeah.
Jeff Unsworth. My God, what a talented man, cinematographer.
I think the big. I think you're really touching on something right there. It's the quality. The quality of cinema coming out has just gone down, and that is going to be the biggest inhibitor to people going to the theaters more than anything else. Because if it's not good enough to go to a theater to see it, then people won't. They'll just wait for streaming.
Well, and what is that streaming revenue going to do for the company?
Mm-hmm. Apparently, I don't know if you saw this. Let me see if I can bring this up here.
I mean, if people are saying, well, I don't really watch Disney Plus anymore, and most of the stuff on there is crap, but I'll wait till X movie that's about to come out gets there so I can see it before I quit. If the more people make that equation and see it and it stinks, they do quit. Why should they pay for it? The bundle is not saving them anymore the way it used to in the days of cable.
Right.
People who got mad at Disney still didn't realize that $7 out of their $34.95 bundle was going to ESPN, which was going to Disney, until they found out, and then they got mad and walked away. And they told their friends, and they told their friends, and they told their friends. It would be, if it was good, it would be called a snowball, but what it is an avalanche.
It's a fair point. I don't know if you saw this. We talked about before how theater owners are doing everything that they can to basically reinvigorate theaters, and I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but the idea of putting in gimmicks and so forth to get people to come back. I think we had an exchange actually about their input on the quality of these pictures and the pictures themselves. Apparently, they might be doing a little bit of that as well. Let me go ahead and show you.
Well, if the boss is watching them 4 or 5 times, they're going to be good.
Variety, May 30th.
But I'm looking again at our chat, and somebody talking about Elio, and I hope it's good. I hope it's good, but the company's going to be screwed. Well, that's the problem. You won't get another one if it's good, because the company won't be there to make it. And everything is connected. Everything is connected.
Indeed.
There's a good headline. Jackie Chan didn't train for Karate Kid Legends. I don't need to anymore. I've been training every day for 64 years.
That's good. That's a good headline indeed. Movie theater owners want to vote for Oscars and push to join the Academy. We watch everything. It's a no-brainer. This is an exclusive.
Well, that's silly, of course.
By Clayton Davis.
Why don't they start their own and beat the Oscars?
That's a fair point. At the end of June, the Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences is expected to extend invitations to a new class of members who meet the professional qualifications to join the most prestigious club in Hollywood. Ooh la la. This annual membership expansion is attracting particular attention this year from theater owners themselves, a group that hopes to see more of its colleagues included among the people who can vote on Oscar nominations and winners. Historically, the Academy's membership has skewed towards creative professionals, including
But that was
directors,
the
writers,
point.
actors.
That's why it was an academy, not a popularity contest.
Correct. Yes. While a handful of exhibitors are already members of the organization, many in the theatrical exhibition community argue that their unique perspective is underrepresented, particularly at a time when the Academy is doubling down on the importance of theatrical releases. Interesting. I do agree with you. It's not a popularity contest. It's supposed to be,
Well, in theory,
yeah. Well, that's kind of skewed the other direction, Lou, because you would think, the biggest blockbusting films gets unusual attention.
Look at that paragraph at the bottom there. I'm all for the stunt category. I should say that up front. But casting. You get an Oscar for casting. I say, the most underrepresented at the awards of all the various professions, and considering that profession touches the lives of every member of the cast and crew every day, my God, we need an Oscar for craft service.
Yeah, I think so.
We truly do. We need an Oscar for craft service. And
I mean, if you're going to give it out for casting, you might as well. And we know how that casting category is going to go, Lou. It's who's the most diverse, which makeup.
Well, first they'll give it to all the old farts that have been around forever that they want to honor,
Oh yeah.
Because they can't give them a Thalberg and they can't give them a, those special honorary awards. So, in a way, a casting person who does their job deserves an award for sitting through all the bad auditions they have to watch to find somebody good. Well, think about it. How many crappy sides do they have to watch people read before they finally, oh my God, here's one who can actually read the words we gave him. Here's one who can actually show up.
Well, that's the thing. So with the what is it? The new cast for Harry Potter, right? Didn't they say they went through like 30,000 children?
Well, they would say that, wouldn't they?
I think so.
But who went through them?
30,000.
The boss never saw 30,000.
Well,
I think I've told the story. In fact, it may be apropos to tell it again. When I was writing food and wine and hospitality stuff, I would get asked to judge contests every so often. And one time, this outfit called S&E Rykoff, which is a big wholesale grocery company. I don't know if they're nationwide, but I know they're all over the West Coast. And basically, if you think of the Kirkland brands that Costco does, they do their own brands of everything. And they sell to everything from major supermarkets to all the mom and pop bar and grills out there. Their canned salmon and their canned beans or whatever it is. Anyway, they decided to do a cooking contest. And the rules were pretty unusual because it was not by course of the meal. It wasn't desserts versus entrees or sides or appetizers. It was as long as you use one of our products, one of our green cans of S&E Rykoff, whatever, enter your recipe. And they asked me, and I think it was 5 other people. I know there was the executive chef from the Beverly Hills Hotel. There was a great famous independent chef. They asked 5 or 6 of us to be the judges, and they told us a date when we were supposed to show up at this test kitchen. And then they kept calling, saying we had to put it off. We got too many We had to put it off. We got too many. And finally, they got thousands and thousands and thousands of recipes. And to be fair, good for them, they hired the culinary arts department at UCLA to make them all and winnow it down to 20 for the judges to judge. So finally, they did all that, and we showed up on the day, and they made the first 10, and they were okay. They weren't bad. They were kind of, well, my friend who was the famous French chef said, this is very good cafeteria food. And it was good cafeteria food. We weren't expecting gourmet whatever. So I went over to the lady from UCLA at that break that we took after 10. I said, these are the 20 absolute best, right? She said, yeah. I said, and you got thousands, right? She said, yeah. I said, and you personally tasted every one of those thousands, right? She says, yeah. I said, if these were the best, what was the worst? And she had a look on her face like somebody remembering surviving the Titanic, you know. She had this look on her face of dread and horror. And she looked at me and she said, I cannot begin to describe it to you. I can only tell you what it was called and let you draw your own conclusion. And I braced myself. And she said it was called crab cobbler. And we're not talking, you know, fresh Alaskan crab here. We're talking about canned S&E, and I'm going crab cobbler. So,
Yikes.
you know, awards are a funny thing. And certainly they have their pressures. And I've talked before about what a famously corrupt thing the Golden Globes are and always have been. But man, if you're going to get one of those goodie bags with Cartier watches and God knows what in them, it's good to be a king, you know.
Indeed. Oh, that's a good point right there. Hey, you know, maybe they should be getting awards for casting right there.
But the casting, it would be like if it was really the people that do the work, it would be like those poor people from UCLA who had to eat all that crap, or at least taste it once.
Right. The mum with the 199 entertainment awards don't mean much due to quality. That's a fair point right there.
Well, supposedly the quality goes in before the name goes on, right? Wasn't that the old slogan for?
Apparently. There's one more story I want to go ahead and feature here with Lou.
Oh, before you do, we should call attention to the jukebox.
Oh, yes, of course.
Because this has always been one of my favorite scores. And when they put out this compendium of it, because it has wonderful fanfares like so many of the classic scores did, but then it goes into this minor mode. It goes dun 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 dun. Then it goes dun 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 dun. And it's The Prisoner of Zenda, which is a great story anyway. And I bet a lot of people who've never seen The Prisoner of Zenda, when they watch it, will go, wasn't that what they did in The Great Race? Because The Great Race had a section that was kind of a spoof of The Prisoner of Zenda. But this is the wonderful, wonderful classic Hollywood score. And I commend it to you for those days when you need a little oomph in your music. And the links are in the description. So now then.
Absolutely.
What were you going to show us now?
We'll go ahead and put this on screen right here. You can find the this week's Backlot JUKEBOX actually both in the description and the chat. Definitely give it a listen, because guess what? Lou doesn't steer you wrong when it comes to great music. Always something interesting to listen to. I do want to go ahead and feature this. I really want to pick your brain on this because I think it's a fascinating story. This is from Deadline here. Crew strikes against Terrence Howard film Cypher after production refuses IATSE contract. This by Katie Campione of Deadline here. Crew members Campione. Crew members in
Champion
Kentucky.
in English.
Crew members in Kentucky have walked off the set of the low-budget film Cypher, starring Terrence Howard, in protest after the production declined to secure a union contract with the IATSE. Deadline understands that the production was recently put on notice because the crew felt that they were, quote, treated less than by being classified as independent contractors rather than employees. The majority of the crew expressed a desire to unionize, primarily in order to secure an industry-standard pension and health benefits. producers had until Wednesday to respond, but sources say that they have been silent. In response to radio silence, crew went on strike Wednesday and have been picketing on location. It's unclear whether any actors have crossed the picket line. Production on Cypher, written and directed by Tony Giglio, began May 12th. The film, which has a budget of $3 million, does have contracts with Directors Guild of America and SAG-AFTRA. Sources also tell Deadline that production is receiving more than $1 million in state tax credits from the Kentucky Entertainment Initiative, raising, quote, red flags about the refusal to grant a union contract to the crew. It's not entirely uncommon for low budget productions to at least attempt to film without union contracts, especially on the below the line side of things. And the unions will often try to flip the production before it concludes. However, there is plenty of precedent for IATSE contracts on films of similar size and scope. Per sources, both union and non-union crew members were in favor of an IATSE contract. Most of the initial crew has not returned to work since Wednesday at call time. Those sources indicate that they believe the production may be attempting to continue with a replacement crew. Lou, your thoughts on this?
I smell several rats.
Mm-hmm.
First, it says that there were both IA and non-IA people on this crew.
Right.
As I understand it, for the IA people to have even joined the crew without a union contract is a violation. Their own union could discipline them for doing that. The idea that it started without one and hoped to get one someplace down the road is ridiculous. You either do it or you don't do it, and you join the job or you don't join the job. And if you join the job and you're a member of the guild and it doesn't have a guild contract, you're violating your contract. You're violating your membership. You could get drummed out of the Corps in any place like DGA or SAG or any of the other guilds out there. So that's strange. Lastly, we've talked a lot about these various state incentive programs. And while I understand that they want any and all production, you would think that state governments, considering how closely politicians of both parties are tied to unions, certainly nobody working in the state capitol is working without a union. You would think they would make it a requirement of those subsidies that there be union contracts for the productions, but they don't, apparently, at least not in Kentucky. So that's kind of weird and brings up an issue we hadn't really thought about before, frankly, because I just sort of assumed it. I don't know. But for example, we've just seen California have a big PR push and double the tax incentives in California to keep productions from quote unquote running away. Right. And of course, all the guilds and unions were pushing on that and very much in favor for it. I wonder if they would be if they found out that it applied to non-union productions as well. There's a lot of conflict of interest going on here between various parties. And this story, I don't know. All by itself, it's not a big deal. It's a little teeny movie. The only thing apparently about it that anybody wants to share is that it's got a relatively well-known actor at the top of it. But and then nobody's gone to him for a quote.
Apparently not, right? Apparently not.
Is he just acting, or is he part of the production? Is he getting an Alec Baldwin style participation in the management or the net? I don't know. I don't have any idea. All I know is what you're showing me. There's a lot of questions it brings up about the whole situation.
Yeah, and
what's going on.
Apparently, the replies to this are very, very interesting. Apparently, some people are accusing the producers of maybe pocketing that cash, that tax incentive.
That assumes it's there. I see Jan Monroe bring up an interesting point about right to work states. You're right. The state cannot force someone into a union, but the state isn't what's involved in the sense that they're giving the tax break. The whole point of these tax breaks, these reimbursements, these credits, whether it's in Kentucky or the UK or anywhere else, is to increase employment. The theory is that if we get more of our local people working, which means people doing not just the classic movie jobs, but people selling them stuff, people stocking their shelves, people renting them equipment, whatever it happens to be, that will generate more revenue for the state than we're losing by virtue of the fact that those people are paying taxes on their income. It never happens. It doesn't happen with movies. It doesn't happen with deals offered to, for example, the biggest ones are the deals to make sports arenas and football stadia and stuff like that. It never once has ever generated net more revenue to the state than they gave up. So it's all about politics and like that. So
very interesting. This by Mikey Hunts here. Interesting. That's the whole purpose of a union actor, producer, director, writer getting paid union money. If you're going to make a movie, you got to hire a union crew to a certain percentage. And also, one of the big problems with union crews, IATSE, is power pushing bullies on set and nepotism and greed. Producers Guild of America is not a union and does not mandate hiring IATSE crew members. True. The PGA is a professional association for producers in the entertainment industry, focusing on the specific needs and interests of producers themselves. According to the PGA, they are a professional association, not a union. IATSE is a union that represents behind-the-scenes entertainment workers. Producers who want to work on union projects typically need to be signatory to IATSE and other relevant unions like SAG-AFTRA, according to Set Hero. In short, the PGA is a professional organization.
I don't know why he's so obsessed with the PGA in this story, because I don't see where they come into it. But anyway. And by the way, we see this next part about SAG and AFTRA have, and so does Directors Guild, have agreements for low budgets. They have special low budget agreements for budgets to a certain amount that give a break on the rates or a break on conditions. So they try very hard to get people inside the tent by giving these agreements in the hopes that if we let you make a special low budget agreement picture today and you're successful, your next one will have a bigger budget and we'll hire more of our people at the top rate. So
how interesting.
That's the whole point of these special low budget agreements, as they're called.
Right.
Is to encourage people to get involved, because once you become a signatory, you are one, period, until you dissolve that company and start another one. It's not the individual, it's the production company.
Right.
That signs.
Well, I just thought this story was very, very interesting. And it's a little bit different from what we usually showcase on the channel, but I think it's deeply fascinating, especially with you, Lou, who has history.
I've negotiated contracts and I've been the subject of contracts and been around the horn a little bit with this stuff. And again, I would stress, and I mentioned this. There's an article I did on that Park Place page recently. Remember, please, when you're talking about guild and union contracts in the movie business, you're talking about what's called the MBA, the minimum basic agreement. Where it goes above that is between you and the producer and how much clout you've got and all the rest of it. But it's the bare minimum deal that everybody has to get going in when it's a guild contract. And that's the part of this that's really strange, that there would be some people who were members and some people who weren't members. Right. And yet they all worked. If this had happened before they started production, make more sense. But if these guild people, if these IATSE people who were working on the movie were told it's not going to be an IATSE contract, and therefore you're going to violate your union's terms by working on it, are you willing to do it anyway? And said yes. If I were them, I wouldn't expect my guild to do a lot for me, because I've just basically kicked myself out of it. In theory. So there's just too many wonders and curiosities in this for it to make a lot of sense. But the chances of that production ever going IA, slim to none. And they'll just hire some more people to fill in for the people that don't want to work. Now, if the people who are not members are saying, well, we won't work unless it's guild, go fish. You have no standing. You have no I mean, other than, my God, you're the best second unit, third grip in the history of the world, and we need you. And therefore, we're going to pay everybody in the company more money and more benefits because we need you. Yeah, fat chance. Walmart has arrived with more stuff.
Well,
it's amazing when you get deliveries all day long, stuff you don't even know your wife bought. But here it comes.
Well, there you go.
My office, as you know, has a wonderful view of our lovely backyard and our driveway. And sorry, I was distracted by that big Walmart van driving up out back. But that's just how I am.
Let's get you to your delivery right now, Lou. I very much appreciate your commentary on this specific subject right here. Well, I just think it's very fascinating.
Just know that this is a strange kettle of fish. Beautiful Kentucky.
Strange kettle of fish indeed. Well, that just about wraps up our show right here.
At least they'll have something good to drink while they're not working.
I suppose there's a silver lining somewhere, and that about rounds out our
more golden brown, I think, than silver. But yeah, that's the idea.
Indeed. Just checking the super chats right here, making sure we got everything. Okay, I think we did. And I think that just about wraps it up. We went a lot of places, but I really try to keep it more film focused and very interesting stories going on in the industry right now, combined with some stuff that from our amazing cinematic past. But if you want to go ahead and submit your own questions, you can go ahead and do so at 23p online at yahoo.com, where Lou will be happy to go ahead and answer them. Awesome stuff right there.
Happy. And sometimes sad. But that's the kind of questions you people ask. I blame the question, not my answer, for being not
exactly. Some people happy, some people sad. Either way, we'll go ahead and answer them to the best.
They'll be honest answers, whether they're happy, sad, or otherwise. I guarantee that.
Indeed. I will agree with that.
I'm too old to lie. I'll forget.
Lou, you're not supposed to reveal that. But thank you so much for joining us this afternoon right here. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. We have some amazing content here.
If you haven't subscribed yet, what the heck are you waiting for?
I know. What are you doing?
It's free, and you get such goodies like the Genre Guys. What's the next one coming up for Genre Guys here?
I have to actually look that up right now. But we got some amazing stuff like Chinatown coming and a whole lot more, especially relevant for today's context for sure. So definitely subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I've seen the analytics. I've seen that 30% if you haven't subscribed yet. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button, by the way. That helps us out tremendously for this. And also, too, I recommend going back one episode of Hollywood Backlot with Lou and you to watch our wing walking episode. I know the contributor there, our special guest that we had, is really wanting to make that a big success for the channel. So please go ahead and watch that. You will not regret it, folks. It is awesome, amazing stuff right there. And we're producing a whole lot more content for you. So thank you so much. The one
question that our special guest didn't answer, although I guess we can intuit the answer. Mm-hmm. Why do they call it wing walking when it's mostly wing clinging for dear life?
That's a fair point. Perhaps we can relay that answer.
Wing clinging has a kind of a music to it that wing walking. Well, I guess they both work. Anyway,
that's a fair point right there. I'll go ahead and I'll get back to you on that though. But it's good stuff. Well. Whatever the case may be, it is awesome stuff. Definitely check it out. And for all the news that should be fun, it's right here. 23PO Live, by the way, will be at its normally scheduled time, 3 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday.
Yes, I will fail to join you this week because I have an otherwise important engagement, but I will be back here a week from now.
Good.
And, of course, the Genre Guys persist, as we say.
Awesome. I wanted to. I was going to ask you about that, but I didn't want to put you on the spot, so I'm glad you clarified for myself and for the audience right there, knowing that their favorite programming won't be disturbed. But for now, go ahead and go back and deliver you more content in the days to come. Thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate you. Truly, we do.
Indeed.